This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas yesterday and that your bets did better than mine. We talked so much about which of the three games in the NFL we're going to upset the money line parlay on those favorites, mess up the teasers. Well, we got our answer. Thanks a lot, Detroit, as we welcome you into Money Moves. VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino as always. And while Minnesota was the only outright dog to win yesterday, we saw all three backup quarterbacks get covers for their respective teams.
Yeah, that was a really ugly day yesterday. Not a good, not a feather in the cap for the NFL when it comes to the product.
Not
the fact
ideal.
that a lot of these teams, or these three teams, can get outgained, outperform, and for the most part be competitive in those contests and maybe in some cases win them. So I guess it's the National Football League. It's always going to be king, but those games suck, dude.
It was not good.
No.
It was not good. I'm sure the Max Brosmer show and Chris Oladokun isn't exactly what Netflix and Amazon Prime were searching for when they paid the big bucks to get those games on their respective networks. We also thought that the dogs might be barking early in the NBA. You get two dogs covering in the early window. The Spurs win outright against the OKC Thunder yet again, and then it was favorites the rest of the way for the day. We will get into plenty of the NBA today on the show as well. We've got a full card and a couple great guests on deck, which will lead us to where we begin. Let's set the table for the program with the Rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
So our good buddies Will Hill and Zach Cohen are going to join us on the show today. Will Hill coming up in 30 minutes, going to talk through a couple college football bowl bets, some NFL plays, and then later on in hour two, Zach Cohen does a great job here at the network covering the NBA, host of the Hardwood Handicappers podcast. Get some of his thoughts and reaction to yesterday and the card coming up this afternoon.
Yeah, call Zach Cohen, JJ Redick, because he had some strong words in a text to me today. He took a head coach in the NBA to the woodshed in today's edition of Hardwood Handicappers, so make sure you check that out. We'll have his best bets as well. Looking forward to seeing who exactly that is. I know who it is, but you have to find out.
And we mentioned the Bowls as well. Bowl Mania, one game already in action. The game above Sports Bowl in Detroit. Northwestern up 7-0 right now. They closed a 13.5-point favorite against Central Michigan. The total in this one closed 43.5, looking like an under. But two more games still to come today, which we will preview. A bunch of fun ones on Saturday as well. Plus the big news in college football. Kyle Whittingham, apparently the focus of the Michigan head coaching search now.
The focus, or I think it sounds like it's all but done.
Sounds like it's pretty much
This
wrapped
is
up,
it.
yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the guy. I don't know. I guess after all of this, you could probably do worse if you're Michigan, but I highly doubt that when Sharon Moore was shown the door by Michigan that the program thought this was going to be its ultimate hire.
I feel good that my sources were right on this one. When we initially saw the I am leaving Utah and Morgan Scalley is now stepping up report, it's like, yeah, there's some rumors that maybe he could be in the mix for Michigan, and then there it goes. And you mentioned...
I don't think you ever reported that on the air.
Did I not?
I think you're doing that Michigan. I think you're doing that college football insider thing. It was like, I knew this the whole time.
I said it to you for sure.
I don't
Was it
remember
not
that.
on the air?
I don't remember you saying that.
Yes, it was.
I think you're trying to take credit for this.
You are a sick liar, and I can see that smirk on your face. I'm not.
You did have this. I don't remember.
I'm not painting Ole Miss on this one, okay?
Good one.
But you mentioned coaches getting upset. How about JJ the Grinch handing out lumps of coal to his team this week? We talked about the NBA card being so great. Not so great for the Lakers, and JJ did his best Grinch impression. Hate, double hate, loathe entirely when it came to the effort for his program.
I mean, you have to at this point right now, given the way the Lakers have been playing, haven't been winning basketball games, worst defensive team in the NBA outside of the Utah Jazz over the last 2 weeks and even over the last month or so. So a lot has to be fixed for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm just glad that we got the Christmas miracle, and everybody's learning that the Lakers are actually frauds and not really as good as their record had indicated, and that they were just getting by the hair of their chinny chin chin in every single one of those games.
And good for Houston, rocking around the Christmas tree. Is that smooth? There we go.
They had lost 4 out of 5 heading into that game, so they were looking to get back on track, and that was a rear end kicking.
Okay, so let's get back into the NFL as we kick things off here real quickly. Of course, the 3 results yesterday: Vikings upset the Lions 23-10. The Broncos need a late touchdown to beat the Chiefs. Despite closing 13.5-point favorites, that was a tie game until the last couple minutes there. 20-13 final in favor of the Denver Broncos. And then the first game of the day when we were on the air, Cowboys beat the Commanders 30-23. They do not cover the 8.5. Which of the results was maybe the most stunning in your opinion?
I mean, it has to be Minnesota and Detroit, right?
I don't know that the Broncos to me was pretty surprising as well, the way that came down. So those were kind of a tie for me.
I think that you're right. Like, that makes some sense in that regard, in the sense of, like, hey, we thought this team was going to roll. I think we had talked about it. Like, why wouldn't they be able to just stomp this team out? At the very least, the box score, 303 total yards, 139 for Denver in that game against Kansas City. If I just told you, hey, the Broncos defense was going to play well and Bo Nix was going to kind of struggle, I probably think you would have thought, oh, yeah, that kind of sounds like it. So
if only fourth quarter Bo Nix would ever want to play a full game, that would be nice.
And why does Bo Nix in the fourth quarter exist? Because his defense is so good. Yeah. So I think, to me, and especially it's the way they lose the game for Detroit. I mean, 23-10, you kind of saw this get salted away early, but the fact that you just averaged 3.6 yards per play in the turnover column, you're -6 in the game. Just absolute abysmal offensive football. And it's funny, like, we had talked about this. It's like, hey, you want to tease them down because they haven't been really running the ball particularly well, and this offense isn't as good as the market thinks. 2.3 yards per carry for Detroit. Just an absolute nightmare. And you have real questions about this team now that they've been eliminated, big picture moving forward. What exactly is this group as we kind of look past this year and into 2026 for them?
I think nightmare, probably the word that Jared Goff had going through his head.
Nightmare before Christmas?
Just brutal. Entering week 17 for the Detroit Lions, they had just 8 total turnovers on the season. They have 6 of them yesterday, 5 of them at the hands of Jared Goff, 2 picks, 3 lost fumbles in this one. 195 yards, 1 touchdown, the 10 combined turnovers and sacks, most he has ever had in his 150-game career. And you talk about big picture and what this might mean moving forward. Well, Dan Campbell on the podium said what needs to change after a tough ending to the season.
I'm going to be looking at a lot, I'm going to be looking at a lot of things because I do not like being home for the playoffs, and I know our guys don't either. So, and there again, whenever you lose, man, it takes a village, man. Everybody's involved, including myself, So I'm always going to look at myself first, I'm always going to wish I would have given Goff more, given those players more. Like on a day like today, you come out, you lose, win, doesn't matter, man. If, you feel like you need to improve or can't improve, you want to.
Is he Ed Orgeron?
What do you mean by that?
Ed Orgeron, many years ago, had one of the best college football teams. Actually, no, had the best college football team of all time with Joe Burrow. He had Joe Brady calling plays for him. He had Dave Aranda calling his defense. They were the best program we'd seen in at least a single year, I think. It's one of the better runs that we've seen from a team. And then both of them left. And then Eddie O and the LSU Tigers program kind of fell apart pretty quickly, and you had to move on. And now here we are with Dan Campbell. I think he's a better coach overall than what Ed Orgeron is. I mean, clearly he's got at least a decent baseline here. We've seen it with him. But Ben Johnson's gone, Aaron Glenn's gone, and now all of a sudden it's, maybe 1 year. But we've seen some pre-Ben Johnson stuff from Dan Campbell, and it hasn't been great. Is he just a dude that was very reliant on the success of his coordinators? And while he can get a team together, there are clear limitations when a program, or a franchise is just being run by Dan Campbell.
The counterpoint I would have is that I think there was a similar sentiment about Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles a couple years ago when they lose their coordinators, they step in, didn't have 2 new guys, and it just does not work out throughout the course of the season. Then the following year, what happens? They go on to win a Super Bowl with the new voices that they have in the room. So maybe it's a situation like that.
And then Kellen Moore left, and how are they doing?
And then it struggles again. But the point being, as a head coach, part of your job is to get the right people in the room so that you can have that overseer type of a job. And so maybe that's what it's about, is just the hires this year weren't right. And what is that going to look like moving forward? And especially on the offensive side of the ball, I like that he at least put himself in that conversation, because he did take over play calling duties when they were 6-3 on the season. They were still performing pretty well, and they've gone, 2-5 the rest of the way since. And it's not all an offensive issue, obviously, but I think that's good that in terms of the evaluation, you have to do that kind of self-scout on yourself too. And what is Dan Campbell good at?
Motivating people.
Which he is.
Yeah.
Which he is. He's a good leader. So I'm curious to see what this is going to look like moving forward and beyond. And it does, I think, naturally make you think about what he said a couple years ago in 2023 after having the loss in the NFC Championship game, where he said it's hard to be here. And he told the team this isn't something that happens every year. And obviously they had a great season last year and didn't get to the mountaintop. So how do you feel?
36-15 versus 11-21-1. That would be Dan Campbell's record with Ben Johnson as his play caller and without Ben Johnson as his play caller.
Ben Johnson's doing pretty well over there in Chicago.
He's doing pretty damn well. So,
which is, by the way, also where you end the season next week.
Look, I think there's probably worse head coach, and I think your point is fair. Let's see if you can make another good hire. Let's see if you can find somebody to kind of get this back together from an offensive standpoint, and we'll give you another crack at this. He's obviously not going to go anywhere. He's done enough. But if you have another year where the offensive line struggles, your offense doesn't look anywhere near it did while Johnson was there calling plays, Jared Goff maybe continues to take a step back, you're looking at this franchise, I think, and you're really asking some tough questions about everything after next year, depending on where they're going to be. I'm
still just laughing. If I told you Max Brosmer had 51 yards through the air and the final score was 23-10.
You can't lose a game like that, dude.
Which one would you think? It's just crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And that's what happens when you turn over the freaking football 6 times.
Brian Flores does it again, too, man. We should give him credit.
I think it's funny, too, that you're giving all of this to Dan Campbell. Do we put any of this on Jared Goff for the course of the season?
Oh, sure, of course. I mean, I think Goff hasn't played well, or at least as well as we know he can. And the offensive line's been really brutal, too.
That's the thing I come back to, and the secondary.
And the
offensive line in the secondary.
We talked about some of the losses along the offensive line coming into the year, and I thought those showed. And by the way, the Lions told you, too, because they tried to bring Ragnow out of retirement 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and it didn't work out.
Unfortunately, didn't pass his physical. Also for the Cowboys, just as we round this out, because we do have to take a quick time out here, did want to make note of this stat because I didn't realize it until we came into the show yesterday. The Cowboys' first half overs have been insane. Now 15-1 after yesterday. Their full game totals an NFL best 12-4 to the over following yesterday's 30-23 win. Okay, we got to step aside. We've got a few NFL injuries to make sure we update you on when we come back, as well as a look at what happened yesterday in the NBA and push it forward.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. This NFL season, remember, football meets flavor with VSiN and Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. And right now, you can score 2 pounds of fully cooked chicken wings, plus save 50% site-wide when you shop at omahasteaks.com/VSiN. From legendary steaks to crowd-pleasing appetizers, Omaha Steaks makes game day easy and so delicious. Don't wait. Get 2 pounds of wings. Save 50% at omahasteaks.com/VSiN. That's omahasteaks.com/VSIN. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. A few injury updates to get to here in the National Football League. For the Colts, as they get set to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars as 5.5-point dogs this week. Sauce Gardner, I didn't expect this, but expected to return on Sunday, as will their left tackle, Bernard Raymond, expected to give it a go. Meanwhile, other big news on defense looks like DeForest Buckner on injured reserve. He's going to need neck surgery after re-aggravating that injury.
Still mathematically alive to make the postseason, so it sounds like they're going to try to just keep this thing going. Given the developments yesterday, I believe they would now, if they went out, have the strength of opponent or something like that in favor of them over the Houston Texans. So helps them out a little bit there in that regard. They would have to win out, obviously, and need the Texans to lose here. So, look, if you're alive, you keep fighting. And if there's a chance that you bring back Gardner to see what's up, I'm hoping that you're not rushing him back. Yeah. Given that it's a calf injury, given the minimal probability that you're actually going to make the postseason, one would assume that he's pretty healthy here. And a Colts secondary that looked like it was going to have some pretty big issues, all of a sudden maybe gets a little bit stronger. But we saw Jacksonville go into Denver and tear up a much better defense. So let's see what this looks like.
Is there anything you might want to do here when it comes to, like, the Texans-Chargers game is on Saturday, and so we're going to have a good feel of what the Colts will or will not have to play for come Sunday. Is there anything, we were talking about this yesterday, Andy Gresh and I, on Live Bet Sunday. If you think that Houston's going to win, do you want to play Houston and parlay it with the Jags? Or if you think that the Chargers can win that, do you want to do the opposite and, like, take the Chargers and then maybe take the points with Indy? How do you see it?
I think that you could play that game and probably get a better number with Jacksonville. but I don't think that necessarily means that you're going to be in a better position. We saw yesterday, it was a really good example. We had some matchups in teams that had to win versus teams that didn't, and generally we get the market overinflating those teams, or generally just bad teams get docked a little too much. We're going to have our market power ratings a little bit later. One of the things that really sticks out about the market power ratings is how low some of these bad teams have now fallen in the power ratings, and that to me is a little bit of a mistake. So I think you're right in saying that, hey, if you think the Texans are going to win, or if you like the Texans, which I do, then would you lay 5.5 on a number that closes ultimately 6.5 and maybe even 7 by the time we get to kickoff? Maybe. I think the market might overreact there, but do you feel better having closing line value on a line that might be an overreaction and not warranted? I guess is the thing you have to ask yourself.
Fair. Also in New England, Travion Henderson in the concussion protocol, and Mike Vrabel still said he's in the protocol until he's not, but worth noting, no longer wearing the red non-contact jersey out at practice today. Mac Hollins also among the absences at practice as they get set to take on the Jets this week. And then for the Cleveland Browns, tight end Harold Fannin suffered a groin injury at practice today, reportedly, putting his status in question for Sunday against the Steelers, and David Njoku already out again. So losses in the tight end room for Cleveland.
Yep, going to be big there, but that's about it.
All right, let's get into the NBA because we did have an awesome card yesterday. And let's start with, I don't want to say it's a shocking loss because the Lakers were an underdog to the Rockets, but I guess the way they lost and the issues that J.J. Redick has with his team are certainly at the forefront right now. Take a listen to what Redick had to say post-game.
2 words of the day were effort and execution. And, I feel like when we've done both of those things at a high level, we've been a good basketball team. When we haven't, we're a terrible basketball team. And tonight we were a terrible basketball team. And that started legitimately right away. Again, it goes back to what I said the other night. It's a matter of making the choice. And too often we have guys that don't want to make that choice. And it's pretty consistent who those guys are. And so Saturday's practice, I told the guys, it's going to be uncomfortable. The meeting is going to be uncomfortable. I'm not doing another 53 games like this.
So here's the thing, JVT. Who are the guys that J.J. Redick is talking about?
Well, I don't know who he's talking about. I know what I saw. I know what a lot of people saw. And
what we all saw
was we saw Luka Doncic try to draw a foul and fall to the floor and then complain while he was sitting on the floor while the play went the other direction. I saw LeBron watch multiple offensive rebounds happen and doing nothing. I saw LeBron on a missed shot run back in transition without anybody securing the rebound and then watching from the top of the key as another offensive putback was in the bucket. There's a lot, and it's not just them. But I think stuff like this rings really hollow for a guy like J.J. Redick. When I don't know if you saw this, it was like two weeks ago or so. I think it was a Suns game where there's a clip of J.J. Redick screaming at LeBron, who in the middle of the play is talking to the Suns bench. He's talking with them, just chatting with them. And you can hear him like, LeBron, like he's screaming at him, not paying attention. Eventually he kind of turns around and gets into the play. If that was anybody else, he's probably calling a timeout, getting him out of the game, doing whatever. But the fact that your 2 stars can do whatever, but then here you are trying to lay down the law with this is going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Is it? Is it going to be uncomfortable for the 2 dudes who are also committing to why over the last month you've been one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA? Is it going to be uncomfortable for the dudes who had a hand in allowing the Houston Rockets to grab 48.6% of their missed shot attempts yesterday? Is that really going to happen? I highly doubt that's going to be the case. And I think stuff like this, there's NBA reporters that have talked about this where, dude, you can maybe do this a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And J.J. Redick's done it a lot already this year, and clearly it's not working at all.
Well, and I think, to your point, though, the fact that he's on the podium and he's making these statements, but not acknowledging that the 2 people that need to hear it the most are your leaders and your best players in LeBron James and Luka Doncic, who are 2 people that you're not going up to and saying these things directly to. Yes. So what does this messaging actually do for you? And if your biggest issue with your team, whether it's the 2 of them or the team at large, is effort, how much of that comes back on the coach and the respect that they have for you?
Yes, 100%. So. This has kind of been brewing. We've talked about this. I know Lakers fans have probably bristled at the fact that people have brought up their team maybe being somewhat fraudulent when you look at their body of work so far. Since November 25th, so exactly a month, the Lakers are 7-6 straight up, 6-7 against the spread. Their defensive rating of 125.4 is 29th in the NBA, surpassed only by the Utah Jazz for being worse on that end of the floor. They've been outscored by 5 points every 100 possessions. Oh, and by the way, last night, Austin Reeves aggravated a calf injury, so he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. That's going to be a pretty big blow for this team as well. So the Lakers were never really as good as the record indicates. And in fact, Stormy, they're still, as they're sitting at 19-10, 10 of their wins have come in clutch games. They're 10-0 in games within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go. Those generally should not go in one direction. So even when they start to get into some of those clutch games as well, you'll probably see that coin flip start to go tails as opposed to heads for them. This is a team that is more than likely flirting with like 6, 7, 8 as opposed to a top 4 seed in the NBA, in the Western Conference.
Meanwhile, best game of the day, and I don't think there's much of an argument, was in the nightcap. Last game of the day on Christmas brought the most drama and a number of records that fall with the Nuggets and Timberwolves going head-to-head. Nuggets end up winning in overtime 142-138, the highest scoring game ever on Christmas. And Nikola Jokic, 56 points, 16 boards, 15 assists, is the first 55-15-15 game in NBA history, not just a holiday record. We're talking ever stats. He's also the first player to have multiple 55-point triple-doubles. He also did it this past April, and the most points in a single overtime period in NBA history.
Pretty good, right?
It's pretty good.
And got a haircut right before he appeared.
What is
before
that?
The media.
What is that?
It's a simple cut, so I guess you could do that.
I have never seen that before.
He quite literally did get a haircut. That wasn't like a trick. That wasn't a camera angle. He actually got a haircut. I don't know.
Said, I had a great day. I need to look good for media. These clips are going to be going all over the country.
So he is now the favorite to win MVP, and I think this is the question. Jokic is plus 120. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is plus 125. A week ago, Tim Bontemps, to no fanfare because it's early in the year in the midst of an NFL season, he actually released his first straw poll. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the leader in that straw poll. 865 to 822. 57 to 42 was the edge for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in first place votes. But you have to think, following the first stat line we've ever seen, the 55, 15, and 15 game, the fact that Shai continues to take hits, losing these games to the San Antonio Spurs, and that Nikola Jokic is now, we'll see, it's one game, but what did I tell you guys when I joined you and Andy yesterday? Look, if you're going to think the Nuggets can pull this off, you're probably betting like some Jokic triple-double stuff because it's going to be all him with nobody playing. And sure enough, it was all him with nobody playing. Christian Brown is out. Aaron Gordon's out. Now, of course, Cam Johnson's out. This dude at plus 120, you can make the argument right now is worth betting to win MVP, and that it's a wager that he is going to stay healthy, because if he is, I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and voters tend to do this, because you're great one year, you, for some reason, have set the bar for yourself, and you have to now surpass that. And I don't think Shai will do that. But Jokic, a guy who arguably should have won it last year, not saying Shai shouldn't have, but arguably could have, they're probably going to look at him. And if he's going to be healthy, he's probably the guy.
I know we're running out of time here, but you bring up obviously going 0 for 3 in that matchup with the San Antonio Spurs, and SGA said after the game, they're the better team between the two of us right now. What has been the biggest difference in that series?
I mean, I think it's been a ton, but and it's not there's a decent nugget about this, but at the end of the day, in 3 games, the Thunder have not shot the ball well. You've got to be able to shoot better. They shot 28% from 3 in the 3 games combined they played against San Antonio. There's some details to that San Antonio deserves credit for, but still, you can't do that.
Okay. You hear that music. That means we got to step aside here real quickly. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but the toaster trophy at the Pop-Tart Bowl had a malfunction. Okay. Fortunately, Will Hill's got a bet in the game that really pops. We'll hit that and more next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Make sure you ring in the new year with VSiN. We are going to be live all New Year's Eve and New Year's Day with full regular programming both days, starting with VSiN by the books at 7 a.m., rolling through a numbers game, prop points. We here at Money Moves, Follow the Money, VSiN Primetime, and cashing out deep into the night as you're counting down to 2026 and kicking off the new year. VSiN will be right here with real-time betting coverage across the CFP, NFL, NBA, and more. Spend your new year right here at VSiN, the nonstop home for sports bettors. Why do you say ha?
I thought we'd be live bet New Year or something.
Oh, I thought you were trying to take a dig at me because I won't be here on New Year's Eve, but I'll still do hits with you.
You're not?
I'll do hits with you.
Oh.
I'm a little busy that day. A little busy.
Okay.
As we continue to get into, speaking of live bet programming, VSiN's own Will Hill was on the air yesterday during a lot of the action. Will, first of all, Merry Christmas. Great to have you with us. And I imagine it would have been a happier holiday if OKC won once again. But I hear that you have some feelings about the Netflix programming. How are you?
What's going on? Merry Christmas. Yeah, that was boy, you got to really like football to sit there and watch that for 10 hours between the Chiefs quarterback and the Vikings with Brosmer, and Goff couldn't do much. And yeah, I thought that was a really just rough day for Netflix. We just want to watch the games. Less is more. We don't need 100 people shoehorned in. We don't need athlete interviews, talking to Clinton Portis for the entire third quarter, or Chris Carter, as much as I love him. Like, it's too much. It's way too much. It's way over the top. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just want to watch the games. Keep it simple. I thought their production of it was really lackluster. As far as the Thunder, yeah, RIP. That happened pretty quickly, man. I just thought a couple weeks ago, I mean, they're sitting there, 23-1, 24-1. I got down to like minus 200 the other way for them not to break the record. And starting to think, man, maybe I could hedge at some point. And not expecting the Spurs to basically beat them like a drum 3 times in a row, 3 times in 11 or 12 days. I always knew that Minnesota game, the second night of a road back-to-back, would be tricky, but 4 losses in less than 2 weeks, not what the doctor ordered for that OKC bet, but get them next time, I guess.
No, I still believe you got a shot here, Will. You got to have
so
faith.
So quickly to give up.
I know. Come on, I have faith with you. I'll believe for you. It's okay.
You guys can do math, right? Like, 8
Sure.
losses is what we can afford, and we have 5. Like, that's the math is not very mathy right now.
How many losses did they have in the first 22 games, though? Like, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Will's lashing out of anger. You know what? We'll take that. We'll absorb it, and then we'll move on. You know what I mean? We'll compartmentalize that. Will, let's talk a little football. I have a 2-part question here. First off, what do you like in this Raiders-Giants game, and should I go to this Raiders-Giants game? I have yet to decide whether or not I want to, and I think for my first NFL game live and in person, this should probably be a great event to attend.
Yeah, usually I'm not big to going to NFL games just because you miss so much other action. But this is a Sunday. It's kind of depressing. Now, there's not that much up for grabs here. A lot of this stuff has been settled. We pretty much know our playoff teams. All right, Tampa or Carolina. We'll live either way with who gets in. Pittsburgh or Baltimore. It's probably going to be Pittsburgh. A lot of it is just on seeding. So this is a rare opportunity where you can go to a game and not miss much. So I'll give 1 vote for going. And I will say under is the play here, just because the Raiders dead last in the league in scoring. Giants not too much better at under 21 points per game. And Dart has been really bad since Dable was fired in mid-November. Dart has either regressed, he's afraid to run, maybe a combination of the two. I mean, last week you look at the stat line, 33 passing yards and 7 rushing yards. I know that's a Vikings defense with Flores who can fluster young quarterbacks, can fluster veteran quarterbacks too when you see what he did to Goff on Thursday. But I think, no Bowers for the Raiders. I think this is a typical, just ugly, like 20-17 type of game. So I like the under. Shouldn't be pretty here. And there is a lot on the line. It's very rare you get to see such a mano-a-mano situation for the number 1 pick. So it's at least worth watching. But I do like the under here. Should be an ugly game.
JVT, which game do you think will be more riveting, that one or the following week when you have Raiders Chiefs? So much to play for.
This one, though, with the number 1 overall pick on the line. I mean, they're benching guys or putting dudes on IR. Both teams are. They are tanking off here. This is going to be incredible.
VSiN host Will Hill, host of the Shoulda Bet More podcast, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Another play in the NFL you're looking at. You like the Browns as a field goal dog against the Pittsburgh Steelers. What puts you on that side?
Yeah, I gave this out a little early in the week when it was 4.5. I still like it plus the 3. I just don't think this game, in all likelihood, is going to mean anything. This is basically going to be a preseason game or an exhibition game. I don't know if Pittsburgh will treat it that way, but if Baltimore loses to Green Bay on Saturday, which doesn't look like Lamar is going to play and Green Bay's favored, this all of a sudden doesn't mean anything for Pittsburgh. They clinch the division. They have no DK Metcalf, and if you look at their receivers, I mean, it's Adam Thielen. It's a lot of guys, just spare part kind of guys. I don't know where the scoring come from. Sounds like the weather is going to be shaky, which is always a factor with the wind this time of the year in Cleveland. Cleveland, plays up at home. They just played the Bills to a 3-point game last week at home. So to me, you're getting 3 points in a game that might be an exhibition game. And if Pittsburgh does clinch, I mean, what kind of aggressiveness do they have on offense? Do they probably rest any guy that's banged up? They probably are super conservative on offense anyway. 3 points looks like a lot in what could be a meaningless game. So I'll take the Browns here plus the points.
All right, like it. Let's talk a little bowl action as we head over to college football. We got to make room for this, make time for it. Stormy Buonantony's favorite bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl, BYU and Georgia Tech. What are we doing here?
I like Georgia Tech plus I think 4 is the best number right now. Bachmeier, the quarterback for BYU, whispers he might be hurt. LJ Martin, Conference Player of the Year. Anytime you have somebody that's that good, Is he definitely going to play? Is he definitely going to play the whole game? That would concern me. And this is a pretty good bowl. It seems like the opt-outs aren't crazy here. Pretty reasonable effort you're going to get from both sides in terms of who's playing, who's not. But Georgia Tech has always been good as a dog under Brent Key. I think 17-6 against the spread with like 9 outright upsets. So they profile well as a dog. They're tough to prep for. And then just from like a psychological standpoint, where's BYU's heads at? Last time they played, it was the Big 12 title game. They had a chance. They're 1 win away from going to the playoff. They lose that, and now they're going to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl. You see that a lot in these games where motivation can be a key, and these teams that are disappointed to be in a certain game, don't show up and perform well here. So a lot of things here point towards the dog here with the Yellow Jackets. So I will take Georgia Tech plus the 4. I don't think you can go wrong at any of these bowl games when you like the dog to sprinkle a little money line here. I think Georgia Tech will keep this competitive and will be what should be a pretty good bowl game here.
I know for Georgia Tech, it's not the same seeing how close BYU really was, just 1 game away the Big 12 championship. But, I mean, Georgia Tech, too, this has largely got to be a disappointment when they had their sights set on the ACC championship game and potentially a spot for themselves for so much of the season. Regardless, going to be a super fun, awesome game. I'm very excited to see the live Pop-Tart death at the end and all of that good stuff that accompanies the Pop-Tart Bowl. But we do have another game today that you've got your eyes on as well, the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, FIU and UTSA. This one at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern on ESPN, the nightcap of the day. UTSA, we saw a 4-point swing in some spots early on today. Like UTSA opened 8.5. They got down to 4.5-point favorites this morning. Now we're back out to 6.5. What do we do with this thing?
Yeah, and anyone on the East Coast, you might be snowed in here, forced to watch this game. Sounds like we're getting a bunch of snow here on the East Coast, so that might be the only way people do watch this if you have a bet on this or if you have nothing else to watch. I like getting the points here with FIU. I just don't know from a motivation standpoint. It doesn't sound like UTSA is all in. A lot of opt-outs on both sides. I think this could be a fun live betting game when you look at the total, 61.5. Mm-hmm. There could be some crazy swings with just a lot of points scored. And if you look at UTSA, really didn't perform well when they weren't at home this year. Their road and neutral games were not very impressive. So a lot of opt-outs. I think a lot of offense on both sides. You can certainly talk me into an over, even though 61 is a lot. And we saw the other night, the UNLV game, when you get to a certain number, when you have so many opt-outs, It's hard to get into the 60s and get over that kind of number. And obviously the UNLV game versus Ohio the other night never got close, but I like FIU plus the points. A lot of opt-outs for UTSA. I think this is a game where you just take the points, which should be a back and forth type of game.
All right, Will, we got 2 minutes left with you. I know we've hit the best bets that you like. We do have to ask tomorrow that we have 2 NFL games. I'm curious your thoughts about the big one, Houston and LA. A lot on the line for the Chargers and the Texans. Any opinion?
The boring answer is probably the best answer, and that is Houston is, to me, a great teaser leg at 1.5, too, because that should be a close, low-scoring game. So I'll probably find something to tease Houston with, whether it's the Rams or the Eagles. I think it's a good teaser leg. If you made me just make a straight bet on that game, under 7.5 in the first quarter, both defenses are good. The Chargers' weakness is that offensive line that's beat up. Do they really block Houston? Can they block Houston up front? And meanwhile, Houston's offense just looks broken. I mean, the Raiders had them dead to rights last week. The Raiders probably should have won that game outright. Forget covering the number. So under 7.5 first quarter, I think is a good play there. As far as the other game, if Willis plays for Green Bay, I like the under. Both those quarterbacks, Huntley, which it looks like it's going to be for Baltimore, and Willis, they're just going to run the ball, kind of a military, service academy type of game. If it's Love, I like the Packers. It just feels like it's not Baltimore's year. There's talks about maybe they move on from Harbaugh. I can't see them moving on from Lamar, but it's just been a bad year. It feels like Green Bay finally puts them out of their misery and eliminates them tomorrow. So if it's Love, I like the Packers. If it's Willis, I like the under. But I'd be surprised if Baltimore has one more rally in them and wins the game. I think Green Bay probably puts the finishing touches on them.
Well, awesome stuff as always. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
All right. Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for having me.
Also, the official report as of now, it looks like for Baltimore, Lamar Jackson listed as doubtful, dealing with that significant back contusion. And, of course, as Will alluded to there, the report coming out of the Baltimore Sun this week does not seem like it's all sunshine and rainbows out there in Baltimore right now. We got to step aside. Wrapping up hour 1 of the program next, taking a deep dive into today's NBA card.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Such a fun time of year to be a sports bettor, and the all-new Boomers Sportsbook is bringing you the action. Football, hockey, hoops, and so much more. Use the code VSIN250 when you sign up for a Boomers mobile account right now, and they're going to match your first deposit up to $250 in bonus bets. Plus, you get minus 105 on all pro football spreads each regular season game the rest of the way. Download the Boomers Sportsbook app today. You can learn more at betwithboomer.com. Must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions do apply. Please bet responsibly. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, live in downtown Las Vegas. And I know we're going to dive into the NBA schedule for today here in a moment. We'll re-hit this a little bit later on in the program as well when VSiN's own Zach Cohen joins the program. But something I didn't get a chance to ask you earlier when we were kind of recapping the Christmas Day NBA action. With everything with the Spurs and OKC, and the fact that San Antonio has had the advantage in, significantly the last two games in particular, if those two were to play in a postseason series today, who would you back?
Well, it depends on the price. It's obviously the easy for me to go.
Okay, all right.
No, look.
Leave it to you to find a loophole.
No, but I will say, if you're just saying, just pick the series. Sure, I would say that OKC would win. I would pick Oklahoma City to win the series. But again, depending on price, whatever it is, I think that's really going to be your caveat. Look, the thing about Oklahoma City, and I think this is actually something they should be worried about. They lose this game again to the San Antonio Spurs. They go 11 of 44 from beyond the arc. Alex Caruso and Lou Dort go 4 of 19 combined. It was awful when you were watching it. And at some point, I think maybe you have to adjust. You have to ask somebody else to shoot these things. It's just something when these guys are just jacking up shots and not hitting them. OKC in the 3 games has shot a combined 32 of 111. That's 28.8% from deep against San Antonio in the 3 games they've played. Okay, that's not good. Having said that, this is not an excuse for Oklahoma City because we saw this last year, Stormy. If you remember a season ago when they were in the postseason and they were the, quote, most overrated team in NBA history, one of the things they did last year in the postseason, they shot 33.6% across the board in the postseason from beyond the arc. And in losses, they shot 32%. Their shooting, for whatever reason, tends to disappear. And they really do just kind of stick to their guns when it goes to the way that they play their offense. And so if this is going to be what this team is, which is a team that has on paper relatively solid shooting, but in these sort of games where maybe defensively you can scheme yourself out of it, allow guys like Lou Dort and Alex Caruso to take above the break threes as opposed to corner threes, there's something there that I think if you're Oklahoma City, you've got to try to work on, or if something like that happens, you've got to be able to adjust, because these 3 games, I think, have been a microcosm of what their issues were last year. Mm-hmm. And yes, again, last year, they won the finals. Yeah. But they won the finals in a Game 7 in which the other team's best player tore his Achilles in the final game of the series. That's got to be something you have to be concerned about if you're OKC for sure.
It's definitely an interesting conversation to be had. And listen, OKC is still, a plus 115 favorite to win this whole thing already. They're minus 125. They're odds on in the conference, all of those things. But San Antonio, plus 950, 4th shot on the board in the Western Conference. They did such a good job staying above water when Wemby wasn't available. 9-3 in those 12 games that he was held out. And even with him coming back, he hasn't even played a full complement of minutes yet. He's still coming off the bench, and they're having this type of success. So fun team to watch, no doubt. As we look to today's Friday card, a lot of games, a lot of intriguing games, I think, too, on the card. What was one maybe that stood out to you above the rest?
Well, okay, so there's a couple things. Let's say first off, these totals are getting wild and ridiculous. And one of the teams that we'll talk to Zach Cohen about when he joins us coming up in the next hour is the Atlanta Hawks. They're taking on the Miami Heat today. Number right now is 3.5 in favor of Atlanta with a total of 250.5. We saw this open at 243.5 at some spots. Bam Adebayo got downgraded with a back injury, so it looks like he's not going to be able to make this game. But Atlanta has fallen on some tough times here, and I think you can start to make the argument that, hey, it's not just Trae Young, because, look, Trae Young on the floor, they're one of the worst defensive teams in the association. But overall, this team's offense has kind of fallen by the wayside outside of that Chicago Bulls game the other day where they lost 152-150 in regulation to the Chicago Bulls. But the defense has been really bad for about, I'd say, a full month now, just a little bit under that. So when is this going to turn around if you're Quinn Snyder and the Hawks? Even with Bam Adebayo not out there, it's hard to really believe in Atlanta. And Stormy, also, it's a game with 250.5 as the total, with a point spread that's floating around 3. In a single possession game with a total that high, why wouldn't you not try to find an angle in game during this one,
Yeah.
as opposed to, all right, you know what, I'm going to go pre-flop. I'm going to lay $1.55 on the money line with Atlanta, and then watch all of these wild swings that we see in almost every single one of these games, specifically a high-paced, high-tempo game like this here today. But worth updating that Atlanta is going to face maybe Miami without Bam Adebayo tonight.
We are probably the only show on the network that gives as much talk to the Charlotte Hornets as we do.
I didn't want to start there. I felt like it was selfish.
And I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that was good because then it gives me an opportunity to set it up a little bit here.
Yeah.
But don't let the Hornets get hot in Buzz City, okay? Yeah. They have won 3 of their last 5 games, covering in 4 of those 5, by the way. They're also 9-5 against the spread their last 14. So winning games, covering spreads lately, they've been a pretty decent bet. They are 5.5-point dogs today, taking on the Orlando Magic on the road. Total 228.5.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, this is something we talked about. Look, the Hornets are not going to be a finals winning team. There's no question about that. But the little bit of hope that I have held on to with our win total bet that we have, that your father has at a worse number, is this team just hadn't been healthy. But when they were healthy, you saw the signs. With Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball on the floor together this season, they've outscored opponents by 5.7 points every 100 possessions. Their offensive rating of 125.1 ranks in the 95th percentile of all lineups. When you're talking about those two guys on the floor together, they're not a great defensive team. They're not really going to be. But the upside on offense is there for a team like Charlotte that when they're finally healthy, as we're seeing over the course of these 12 games or so, they're going to be able to string some wins together. So the push for 30, I know Kelly Bidlin's got a 30-plus alternate win total on them. This should be live for Charlotte as we push forward. And in this game specifically against Orlando, look, it's a crowded list of guys on the injury report today for Orlando. We know that Franz Wagner is out. Jalen Suggs is doubtful. Goga Batadze is questionable to play. So if Batadze can't go, and by the way, you should note Ryan Kalkbrenner's on the injury report too. He's questionable here for Charlotte. But you should, if you're the Hornets, if the signs that we're seeing are true, you should be able to, at the very least, I think, be pretty plucky and stay inside of this number against Orlando here today. So you're depending a little bit on the injury report, but not by much. I don't think there's going to be much of an adjustment unless we get a surprising Jalen Suggs upgrade from doubtful. So if that's the case, you want to sit back and wait. But I think the Hornets will be live today to at least stay inside of this number. If not now, like, you got to show, I think, that you're pretty real here if you're talking about all of your guys being available, which they are.
Last couple of minutes here. Where do you want to go next? What else caught your eye?
Yeah, let's go Philly and Chicago. I think the market's getting this right. So this has kind of been ping-ponging back and forth. Chicago opened 1.5. Philly's now up to a 1-point favorite. Total's at 240.5. Injury report for the Philadelphia 76ers is what you want to keep your eye on. When you look at the guys that are maybe going to be questionable, it's Joel Embiid. VJ Edgecombe got upgraded to probable, so that's a good sign. Quentin Grimes is probable to play as well. I think that if Embiid's going to play, you're obviously going to be in a good spot, and maybe the market believes he's going to be out there, but I think some of this is the upgrade of Edgecombe as well. I think the 76ers are live here to get this done. They've been playing some pretty solid basketball. We've seen the Bulls really fall off a cliff. Their defense, as we know, like, they had been kind of fugazi to a point. You can't keep getting into these shootouts and constantly be on the right side of them. They've now slipped to 22nd in defensive efficiency. I think Philadelphia, with the way they've been playing, are going to be able to get in here and score a high number, and asking them to win essentially a one-possession game. Can you win by 2 or more? I think Philly can get this done here today. So even at 1.5, I think the 76ers are the side tonight.
The Los Angeles Clippers, after the 6-21 start, hey, they won back-to-back games.
Yep.
At Portland today.
Just when I thought, what's the line? They keep pulling me back in, kind of a deal. I'm just watching out the side of my eye.
100%. Meanwhile, Portland dropped 2 in a row. Yeah. Good spot.
No, I will say this. Of the 2 later games, like, there is that one, L.A. I mean, they're up to a 3-point favorite over at Superbook.
Not every day you see the Clippers favored.
Well, and on the road.
On the road, yes.
What has been, at the very least, a pretty decent team in the Portland Trailblazers. But this one's like, fine, whatever. I actually think the other game late tonight, Detroit and Utah, is going to be pretty interesting. Right. Detroit got up to, I think, a 10-point favorite at some spots. We're back down to 9 with a total of 244. But if that pops back up to 10, I wouldn't say no to Utah here at the spot. I think we're at the point now where Detroit's at the top of their power rating, and rightfully so. They've been great. You see the record there. They're 24-6. But getting Utah at home, given the way they play offense, I mentioned the Lakers. Yes, over the last month, they're 29th in defensive efficiency. Why? Because the Jazz exist, and they are 30th in defensive efficiency. But the upside with Utah on offense, I think is pretty strong here. So I think Utah would be pretty live to catch Detroit, who's going to be coming on the road. No real big names to note for an injury report. Ron Holland is going to be questionable for Detroit, but clean everywhere else for both teams. This should actually be a really good game. And actually, the schedule today overall is pretty good for the NBA. So looking forward to a lot of these games later this evening, but I think the Jazz would be pretty live here if I can get 10 again.
We will hit more on this 9-game card a little bit later on in the program, coming up in 30 minutes. VSiN's own Zach Cohen going to join the program. One of our NBA analysts, host of the Hardwood Handicappers pod, get his thoughts. I know he's always locked and loaded with some prop betting angles as well, which should be a fun conversation. Okay, we got to step aside here real quickly. When we come back, resetting for hour 2 of the program, we're going to dive into a little college football. We will update you on the bowl that's in progress, preview the other 2 we got coming up today, plus the big news of the day in college football. Looks like Kyle Whittingham is going to be the next head coach of the Michigan Wolverines.
I called it.
Could his coordinator at Utah be coming with him? We'll hit on it all next.